So Scott Bessent accidentally revealed the real reason that America invaded Iran. Most people are hyper focused on this new Donald Trump speech that he put out announcing, victory about invading Iran. And he's talking a lot about nuclear weapons, but this is only half the story. And if you're an investor, you need to understand the full story. So let's listen to the first Scott Bessent clip that I've got for you guys today.
Created a dollar shortage in the country. At a speech at the Economic Club of New York in March, I outlined the strategy. It came to a swift and I would say grand culmination in December when one of the largest banks in Iran went under. There was a run on the bank. The central bank had to print money. The Iranian currency went into free fall. Inflation exploded, and hence we have seen the Iranian people out on the street.
So I want you to keep in the back of your mind what Scott Bessent just said right then about the banks, because this rabbit hole is going to loop back to Venezuela. Because I think the reason why America invaded Iran just recently, yesterday, it's very loosely connected to why they invaded Venezuela as well. Before we get there, Scott Bessent said they created a dollar shortage in Iran. Why would they want to do that? Have a look at this chart right here. We can see that America, the US dollar, is having its worst year in decades. We can see in 2025, people abandoned the US dollar. This here is a report coming straight from the Federal Reserve's very own website. You can see in the blue line, people are ditching and dumping the US dollar at absolutely record rates. Now, who is dumping and ditching the US dollar at record rates? Well, have a look at this. Venezuela and Iran deepen their trade ties to circumvent sanctions. And this was at a forum in Caracas, the capital city of Venezuela. So I hope you guys are beginning to see the true intentions as to why America has invaded Iran. I haven't revealed it yet. I want to show you a couple of more stats before I play that next clip of Scott Bessent that I've got for you guys. So again, a lot of people are like, all right, Iran, I don't give a shit, Luke. Why should I be paying attention to what's happening all the way over in the Middle East? Well, Iran is not a small country. Again, they've got 92 million people, and look at what just happened to their currency overnight. It literally imploded 99% in a matter of hours. I have another chart to really show you the gravity of just how catastrophic this currency collapse has been for the country of Iran. This here, I've zoomed all the way out. This is a 20-year chart of the US dollar priced in the Iranian Rial. So you can see it's been pretty stable since 2018, but you know what they say about currency pegs and them breaking during reset times. We can see literally this is in February 2026. $1 US cost you 42,000 Iranian rials. Today, it's 1.3 million Iranian rials. That's a 99.9% collapse in a month. It is absolutely insane. I would love to try to price gold in the Iranian Rial. I can't do it for some reason, but you guys get it. You guys understand it. The currency is worth toilet paper. It's gone to zero. Now, where do I think things get super interesting here? Well, we remember that Venezuela was sitting on, was it $17 trillion worth of oil? Again, that is enormous. I think this story and this narrative and this, I'm going to call it what it is, very interesting plan that America has created, it all links back to oil. I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. I want to first play the next clip that I've got from Scott Bessent for you guys, because this is the clip that he went out on the news and he said this 1 week ago. So just a few days before we saw this invasion, Scott Bessent sent this warning. And again, this is his second mention of Iran in the month of February.
Announced its maximum pressure campaign on Iran, designed to collapse its already buckling economy. The Iranian economy is in disarray. 35% official inflation, a currency that has depreciated 60% in the last 12 months, and an ongoing energy crisis. I know a few things about currency devaluations, and if I were an Iranian, I would get all of my money out of the Rial now.
In the speech that Scott Bessent gave at the Economic Club of New York, he admitted that the Trump administration's so-called maximum pressure campaign is designed to collapse Iran's oil exports, to shut down the country's oil sector, and to prevent Iran from accessing the international financial system.
We will close off Iran's access to the international financial system by targeting regional parties that facilitate the transfer of its revenues. Our maximum pressure campaign, designed to collapse Iranian oil exports, we are going to shut down Iran's oil sector.
And because the United States is at the center of the international financial system and the US dollar is the global reserve currency, this makes US sanctions particularly devastating, very painful, especially for small and medium.
So I'm going to pause that video there so you can see the number of countries that have been sanctioned by the US dollar. The reason why I want to pause that video right there is because I want to just introduce another interesting narrative or storyline, so to say, regarding maybe why Iran actually got invaded. I mean, I know it's a meme. Maybe I can show you a meme so I don't get in trouble for showing you this. But there's very few countries who don't have a central bank. And there are very few countries who are trying to, let's say, get outside of the US dollar. So again, Venezuela was one of these countries. Here's a little bit of an interesting story from November 2025. How Venezuela uses crypto to sell oil and what the US should do about it. Now, what's super interesting is I told you guys to pay very, very, very close attention to what was said earlier on in the first Scott Bessent video that I played for you guys. If you joined late, feel free to rewind the stream if you can put up with an extra 7 minutes of me. But in the first video we showed you guys, we said Scott Bessent, he was hyper-focused on collapsing banks in Iran. He's very focused on the currency, but he was also very focused on the banks. Now, don't you find this interesting? Iran and Venezuela has a binational bank. Not only that, but we know that Iran and Venezuela, they've settled international trade in gold, stable coins, and cryptocurrency. And this is where I think the story gets super interesting. And I think this is where maybe all sorts of angles will be explored. I want to explore them all with you guys today. But again, I want to, before I show you the real reasons for why I think Iran was invaded, let me play you the official clip, a little snippet of Donald Trump's official clip. And we can compare and contrast. Now, I want to try to skip through. I think the interesting part of Donald's clip starts right here. I don't want you guys to be forced to watch a whole 8-minute video. But this is the official narrative.
As they protested, it has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon.
So I'll pause there. I won't subject you guys to watching the entire clip, but Donald Trump's entire 8-minute speech, it was hyper-focused on nuclear weapons and war and violence and Iran doing evil things, as Donald said in that clip. But I think Scotty B, in the 2 videos and the updates that he's given us talking about and specifically mentioning Iran this month, well, last month in February, he said the quiet parts out loud. He said, look, we're going to create a dollar shortage. I can't believe he and America openly admitted that's the plan. We're going to create a dollar shortage in Iran. That is the plan. It's not necessary. I mean, let's be careful with my words. Scott just said, look, it's a dollar shortage. I think Nikolay, apologies if I butchered your name, dude, in the chat also said Iran was invaded simply because it does not bow to US supremacy. This is also super interesting narrative. I think this is a little bit of the quiet parts out loud. Again, those who dump the US dollar have seemed to get in some serious trouble. This is another chart. I'm trying to get you guys a much clearer chart of what I'm looking for right now, because again, we know that Venezuela is sitting on $17 trillion worth of oil in the country. Iran also has a shit ton of oil. They're a massive, 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 massive oil producing country. They are more, this is a much better chart. Have a look at the leaders here. So Venezuela has the most amount of reserves. Number 2, Saudi Arabia. And then number 3, Iran. Don't you think that's interesting? And look at all of the other countries on this list. Libya, Iraq. They've all tasted a little bit of democracy over the past couple of decades. Again, I want to be clear. This is not a laughing matter. Like, I don't think this is a political matter. I think it's purely economic. And again, we are living in fourth turning times. The world is deglobalizing. I'm unfortunately expecting more volatility to come in the next, weeks to years. But here's where I think the twist comes into it. Okay, we know that Iran and Venezuela has a binational bank. That's a fact. That's interesting. We know that Iran and Venezuela have done trade for years in currencies outside of the US dollar. That's a fact. Super interesting. This is where things kind of might get a little bit more speculative. I saw this article. Have a look at this. So the US recently seized $15 billion worth of Bitcoin from a quote unquote Iranian/Chinese Bitcoin miner. Have a look at the date of this article. October 14th, 2025. Let me break down this story before I start really speculating in big ways, because again, this is about 9 weeks before Trump invaded Venezuela. And we all know the story about the secret 600,000 Bitcoin stash right now hiding in Venezuela. So we can see in August 2025, Arkham Intelligence disclosed that America stole 127,000 Bitcoin. That's a lot of Bitcoin. From a Bitcoin mining business named Lubian. Lubian had operations in China and Iran and controlled about 6% of the global Bitcoin mining hash rate. 6% is significant. Have a look at this. So you can see this has been a story that's kind of been slowly developing behind the scenes for some time now. Chinese Bitcoin miners develop strong relationships and crypto mining facilities in Iran. Look at the date of this. This is mid-2020. This is about 6 months before China banned Bitcoin mining in 2021. Could just be a coincidence, but I think it's super interesting. Now, another reason why I do think this is super interesting is Iran. Well, firstly, this tweet. What does Venezuela and Iran have in common? Super interesting. But because, again, Iran is a little bit of an economic shit show, so to say, like Venezuela, these socialist collapsing countries, they normally subsidize energy costs. And this is where things get interesting. Because believe it or not, it actually costs something like $13,000. Is that $13,000 or $1,300? That's $1,300 to mine one Bitcoin in Iran. And this is another map that kind of breaks down. I'm trying to get another map that has a global look at just how profitable it can be to mine Bitcoin in different countries. And we can see Iran is actually the cheapest country in the world to mine Bitcoin. Let's have a look at this. Because the government has actually subsidized energy. And what's kind of interesting about this is it's very similar to Venezuela. Let me see whether I can find Venezuela on this map. Oh, interesting. Well, Venezuela's obviously seen a volatile cost of electricity in their country. But you can see here, it costs $1,300 to mine Bitcoin in Iran. They're oil rich. They're a very oil rich country. They probably have a ton of natural gas to plug the Bitcoin miners into. And then this kind of gets you into the speculation. So Iran, by the way, I don't think I've showed you this before. Iran actually legalized Bitcoin mining years ago. And if it's been so cheap to mine Bitcoin in Iran for years, and it's been legalized and endorsed by the government, then you've got to start asking the question, how much Bitcoin is in the country of Iran? And I think that, to me, is the more interesting question. Because we know that Venezuela was invaded. They went straight for the gold. But the more interesting thing about the Venezuelan invasion, to me, was the secret 600,000 Bitcoin that is still yet to be recovered. This here is the article that many of you guys might remember from our previous live stream that we did on this topic. Again, if you missed that, make sure you are subscribed because we do deep dives like this all the time here on the channel. We can see rumors are swirling about Venezuela holding $60 billion in Bitcoin. Thought that was interesting. Thought that's really interesting. Again, we broke down that story, so I'm not going to rehash it all today in today's live stream for you guys. But again, there's been speculation about this for ages. What will happen to Venezuela's Bitcoin stash after Maduro is captured? Well, here's the next thing. Is this the commonality between Iran and Venezuela? Because I can find you guys a receipt to show that Iran actually legalized Bitcoin mining back in 2019. Here it is. Okay, I wasn't just drinking happy juice. We can see Iran legalized crypto mining in 2019, allowing licensed operators to use subsidized electricity in exchange for selling mined Bitcoin to the central bank. Bitcoin has served as a tool for paying for imports and settling trade outside the dollar system, even if indirectly. Again, how insane is that? The government, a lot of people have been saying things are going to get really crazy when a government openly prints money to buy Bitcoin. But this is what the Iranian central bank has already done. Think about it for a moment. If you're subsidizing the cost of electricity, what are you doing? You're artificially printing money to make the electricity cheaper. You're the one paying for the loss. And the Iranian government said, yeah, crypto mining's been legal since 2019. That's for 7 years, by the way. But you have to sell the Bitcoin to the central bank. That is literally the central bank taking a loss, printing money to buy Bitcoin. It's nuts. And here's the more interesting thing about this story. So Iran, for a long time, has accounted for between 2 to 5% of the global Bitcoin mining hash power. That means despite Iran only being a small little country with 90 million people living inside it, in some years, they're mining 5% of all of the Bitcoin created each year. It's massive. You see, this is a 4-year chart looking at the transaction volume of the Iranian Bitcoin ecosystem. It's been high for some time now. What's really interesting is you can see in red on this chart, as the official currency lost value, which is the blue line, you can see it cratering since 2014. As the Iranian currency lost value, look at the massive big red spikes. That's the value of USDT Tether received by the central bank of Iran wallets. Kind of interesting. And this here kind of goes back to what Scott Bessent was saying earlier. They were deliberately trying to create a dollar shortage in Iran. And we can see by creating a dollar shortage, they're creating demand for Tether and US dollar stable coins. And we know that they are 100% backed by, what is that again? US treasuries. Kind of insane how this is working. And again, I think this is it goes back to what we're going to continue to say on this channel. We're going to continue to watch fiat currencies collapse like the Iranian Rial just did this week. And you're going to watch more and more currencies collapse into the dollar. And you're going to watch the world's capital and the world's savings collapse into Bitcoin. This is the transition we're watching right now. And most people just looking at the wrong. Again, I don't want to diminish what Trump said. Yes, America Oh no. I think I'm back. I'm back. Apologies, I froze there. I've got about 1,000 tabs on this screen. Apologies about that, guys. I think, look, signal here. Yes, Donald Trump probably doesn't want a ton of countries out there with nuclear weapons. But I think the signal here is the fact that Iran is probably squatting on a shit ton of Bitcoin. If it costs $1,300 to mine in the country, of course people have been quietly mining Bitcoin in Iran for years, literally for years. And then that makes you kind of ask the question, how much are they sitting on? How much Bitcoin does the country of Iran own? And will America attempt to get their hands on it? We can see this is one of the charts I was trying to show you guys a moment ago. Iranians can mine Bitcoin for $1,000 and sell it for 107. It's nuts. Apologies about the bad connection. Moonshine Fuel highlights how in Italy it costs $306,000 to mine one Bitcoin. Yet in Iran, it's 1,000 big ones. What's that, a 300x difference? It's a massive difference. We could argue about semantics. Dropped missiles on, invaded. All feels like the same thing. All feels like do deep dives. All Night High to call it. Again, I think what's happening in Iran is super interesting. I want to answer some more comments in a moment and go through a couple of more questions in the chat. But again, if you want to be mining Bitcoin just like Iran, I always let you know about my partners over there at Blockware Solutions. Right now, they are running a buy the dip promo. So if you've been putting off looking into Bitcoin mining and how I think it is the smartest way to get your hands on some Bitcoin, they're running this promo. You can get 40% off Bitcoin mining hardware and 1 month of hosted mining services for free. Highly encourage you guys. Look into it. I think it's simply the smartest way to get your hands on some Bitcoin. Because again, if you buy Bitcoin from a centralized exchange, that centralized exchange is sending your government ID to the government. And they're going to start kicking in doors, asking you how much you've got. Again, this is why I think Freedom Fighter makes a good point. Buy Monero, then swap for Bitcoin on Cake Wallet, etc. Bitcoin isn't privacy until you do this. Now, I think there's multiple, and again, I'll get back to Iran in a moment. Talking about Monero, like Monero has a lot of issues. One, the liquidity pool in Monero, it's non-existent. Nobody uses Monero in reality. If you look at the volume of how much is actually transacted, it's very little. So if you're trying to hide like significant amounts of money in Monero, it's pretty difficult. Monero might be good for $100 transaction. Sure, maybe that's more private. But again, I just think simpler solutions exist, like CoinJoin. And the biggest problem with Monero that most people don't talk about is you just can't keep any wealth in Monero for any amount of time. I mean, it's technically got an infinite supply. I know the inflation is very low for Monero, but it doesn't have a 21 million coin cap like Bitcoin. It inflates theoretically forever. You can see if you, again, this chart's a little bit more generous to Monero because I've got it on log. But if you put it in regular, like Monero is down 83% against Bitcoin since 2017. This is 10 years of downtrend. So again, I just think there's just going to be solutions built on top of Bitcoin. Lightning. It's not 100% private. It's more private than using Bitcoin on chain. And again, I think what's super interesting here is nation states are clearly able to use Bitcoin anonymously because we still have not recovered the Bitcoin that is supposedly in Venezuela. Even what's kind of interesting here is why is America not freezing the tether that the Iranian government is buying? You can see the big red lines. The Iranian government has been buying a shit ton of US dollars worth of tether. That's a stable coin. Why have they not froze that? I do find that kind of interesting. Find it super interesting. I mean, if Bitcoin's so traceable, I mean, surely freezing stable coins would be even easier to centralized company. Who knows? Maybe it's a part of the plan. Maybe the plan is create a dollar shortage, force them to use US dollar stable coins. Kind of looks like what the plan is right now at this stage. Again, this is the news I'm more interested in. How much Bitcoin does the Iranian government officially hold? We still haven't got confirmation or proof that Venezuela doesn't hold 600,000 Bitcoin. I wonder how much the country of Iran has been able to mine. You know what? We can actually do the maths. So we just showed you the receipt that Iran's hash power has been somewhere between 2 to 5% of Bitcoin over the past, well, since 2019, since they legalized it. So if they have been mining 2%, let's do a conservative estimate and a more bullish estimate, we can figure out how much Bitcoin is in the country of Iran. Because you can see officially here, Iran technically doesn't hold any Bitcoin by the government officially. And of course, that's probably a smart decision to not openly show the government how much Bitcoin is in the country. But let's try to do some maths and figure out just how much might be inside the country. Because again, this is, I think oil and Bitcoin is the real reasons we're seeing Venezuela be invaded today. What? 2 months after Maduro was invaded. So let's ask my friend ChatGPT here. How many Bitcoin were mined between 2019 and 2026? And then we can take between 2 and 5% of this number, and that they can be rough conservative estimates of how much Bitcoin Iran holds. Holy shit. Let's have a look. So ChatGPT gave me about 2.3 million coins were mined between 2019 and 2026. Does that pass the quick supply, we're going to be able to see how many Bitcoin have been mined. The majority of these were mined in the early years of Bitcoin. So it kind of makes sense that only, 2.3 million Bitcoin have been mined between 2019 and 2026. So let's jump over here to give ChatGPT the quick sniff test. Let's look for a supply chart of Bitcoin. Bosh. Look at that. River producing the goods. Yeah, so we can see roughly on this chart, maybe the total amount of Bitcoin mined was somewhere around 17 million coins in 2019, if I'm just eyeballing this. And if you take us forward to 2026, where we are today, we've nearly mined 20 million Bitcoin. All right, so again, encourage you, always fact check ChatGPT. But again, this is the more interesting thing. So if we've seen, what's this? 2.3 million Bitcoin mined since Iran legalized Bitcoin mining, well, then we do the maths. 2% of 2 million, 20,000 coins. So on the low end, there would have to be at least 20,000 Bitcoin in the country of Iran. On the high end, we might be closer to 50,000 Bitcoin. It's a lot of Bitcoin. And again, I'll remind you, the people who were mining the Bitcoin for the government, they were only getting the cheap electricity upon the allowance that they sold it back to the central bank. We can see allowing licensed operators to use subsidized electricity in exchange for selling mined Bitcoin to the central bank. Kind of think that is very, very interesting. So to answer the question that some people might have, what happens to Bitcoin if Iran's hash rate vanishes overnight? Nothing. 2% might drop off the network, but that wouldn't make an enormous difference. Again, this definitely doesn't make any difference to everybody actually holding their Bitcoin themselves. Again, if you guys need a hand holding your own Bitcoin, or if you want a little bit of help making your communications, your telephone, your mobile phone, or your computer a little bit more private, I always encourage you guys to reach out to my friends over there at the Bitcoin Way. They're your Bitcoin one-on-one personal coach. They can help you with anything you need. There's a link down below in the description, and you can book a free 30-minute consultation with my friends over there at the Bitcoin Way, and you can ask them how they can help you in any way, shape, or form. So I highly recommend you check that out. And while we're talking about leveling up your own self-custody and improving your Bitcoin hygiene, again, if you've got a hardware wallet out there, but you do not have your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words backed up correctly, what are you doing? I always tell you, if you have a hardware wallet, you should have your Bitcoin backed up on titanium. This actually lasts and survives in reset times. Again, what we see in Iran is just proof we're living in reset times. You need your Bitcoin backed up and protected on titanium, which is why I always encourage you guys to learn more about my partner over there at Stampseed. I think it's the no-brainer solution to back up your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words. Again, take advantage of that promo code, Luke15. And as you can see, that's going to give you 15% off anything you want to buy from Stampseed. Even if they're running a winter sale like they are right now, you can stack that 15% discount on top of other discounts like the winter sale that Stampseed is running. Again, this is what most people are forgetting about reset times. Dubai is getting hit by missiles sent from Iran. And as we can see, we got buildings on fire in Iran. The Burj Khalifa got hit. I believe that's the tallest building in the world. Think about that for a moment. And Iran retaliated and hit multiple different cities. Dubai got hit. Did Lebanon get hit as well? Again, this is super important that you guys understand what we are living through. Like, we are living through a fourth turning. I think we're living through the most important decade in human history. Again, this is the lens that most people just don't have. Right now, we are living through, again, this is an article I wrote way back in like 2021 before I had 10 followers on YouTube. We're living through the 80-year long-term debt cycle. We're living through the fourth turning cycle. We're living through a 250-year revolutionary cycle. We're living through a 50-year tech cycle. And shit is going to get really volatile. Shit is going to hit the fan in ways that most people cannot imagine. Oh, we have the 250-year empire cycle. And we're transitioning into the digital age. The 2020s is going to be nuts. So again, I wrote this in 2021. What have we seen since then? We've seen Russia and Ukraine get into conflicts. We saw Israel, Palestine. We got Iran, America. We got America taking Venezuela. It's all happening. This is just because we're living in reset time. So again, a lot of you guys are probably aware of taking action over your financial sovereignty. I hope that a lot of you guys, I know that a lot of you guys own Bitcoin and you own it correctly in your own self-custody. But again, think about yourself. I know a lot of nomads who are in Dubai right now. There's a reason why I've never been to Dubai, despite it being the hot spot for digital nomads and tourists and people looking to not go back to their home country. There's a very concerted reason why I'm based in South America. You're away from all of the chaos. No nuclear bombs can hit you, missiles. Like, we are way out of the way. Dubai is a completely different story. You're in the middle of the Middle East. That's probably a tangent for a different day. But again, if you are looking to protect your wealth, you need to consider all of these scenarios. Because what I think we're seeing this. The United States is weaponizing the dollar to retain global hegemony. Again, Iran left the dollar system. No coincidence that, let's just say, they catch the attention of our friend Big Donald. It's not a surprise at all in my eyes. So again, stay very safe out there. Everybody's focused on the price of Bitcoin being down. Where are we right now? It'd be interesting to see whether the markets have opened up or not, or whether they will open up soon. Bitcoin's at $65,000 and that market is open because it never sleeps. And to be honest, considering the amount of chaos we did see, I actually kind of thought Bitcoin held up well enough, still trading in a range. Let's see what stocks do when they open up tonight. Futures market should be opening up, so that'll be interesting. Again, while we're talking about taking self-custody of your Bitcoin as well, I should also remind you to check out Bitvault. If you are anybody holding Bitcoin on your own hardware wallet, always encourage you to learn more about how time-locked Bitcoin wallets or multi-signature Bitcoin wallets can add that extra layer of security on top of just a normal old hardware wallet, which is, again, it's a good solution for most people, but in an increasingly chaotic world, I think taking extra precautions certainly doesn't hurt. And I just love what Bitvault has created. It's a simple, easy to use application that lets you create a hardware or a multi-signature hardware wallet in minutes. And time-locked Bitcoin wallets, they're going to give you 10% off any subscription model that you want if you use the link down below in the description. To take advantage of that, it's a no-brainer. Especially as we continue to see reset times. I think a lot of people are surprised about what we're seeing, but I think it's just the beginning. I think things are going to get really interesting. Especially leading into 2030. By the way, this is an incredible image. I didn't make it. This is created by Brandon Quittem. But again, this is in the article that I wrote in 2021. I said 2 very stark contrasting futures await us on the other side of this transition in the cycle that will end all cycles. And we're either going to get hyper-Bitcoinization or a 1984 Orwellian dystopian nightmare that the central banks want to cattle herd us into. Hey, comrade, you haven't met your required dose of high fructose corn syrup. We sent Fed bucks to your chip. Spend at an improved vendor within 10 days. I think this is the signal that I want you guys to keep in the back of your mind. Like, there is no left, there is no right, there is no red, there is no blue, there is the state, and then there's you. And all of these, to be quite honest with you guys, I think they're going to be using all of this as a red herring to imprison you. Everybody's hyper-focused on AI and how it's going to take all the jobs. Like, be very cautious of what you wish for. You do not want government regulating AI or regulating anything because they're incompetent. Let me have a quick look at the comments. It's interesting. Nobody knows what's going to happen with Bitcoin in the short term. I have no idea. This will be interesting. I don't think we're going to see another 6 to 7 months Bitcoin bear market, like a lot of the 4-year candlestick astrologists are predicting, saying that the 4-year cycle is intact because Bitcoin topped in October. I think a lot of people are going to be left waiting for a bottom in October this year. I wish. Comment section is interesting today. Luke, do you honestly believe we could ever find another nation's Bitcoin, which are probably hidden very well? Maybe. You put someone in prison and you light a metaphorical fire under their ass. Crazy times indeed. Again, I think all of this is just kind of proof that we are living through a reset. And I expect things to get super crazy. Again, considering how crazy I do expect things to get this year, and again, things are going to get more volatile in the future. I actually filmed a deep dive. I released it yesterday, and I want to rank and compare the different assets to hold in a currency reset. So again, if you guys didn't see that, highly encourage you guys go and watch that one. I just put a link to that one in the description of today's video. If you refresh it, you'll be able to see it. I might even put in the live chat so you guys can grab that easily if you haven't seen it. And with all that said, guys, I'm going to end this one here. I'm going to wish you happy Sunday. I'm going to encourage you all to be optimistic. Yeah, the world's a crazy place right now, but we have Bitcoin. We have the lifeboats. And with all that said, I will see you all in the next one.